Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Chasers. Today is December 30th. Just taking a quick look at what's going on currently. Then we're going to go into the extended forecast. And we're also going to take a look at what the storm did last night and see how the models did, what kind of snow totals we got around the region. So we'll just jump right in here. You can see the Willamette Valley is warming up, mainly south of Longview there. You can see some lower and mid 40s as you go down the I-5 corridor there. The coast is warming up pretty good here too. Forks 34 and then warmer as you go down towards Newport and Florence. Still got snow going in the southern Cascades of Washington and Oregon. And again, rain just in the lowlands there for the Willamette Valley. Generally north of Olympia, it's pretty chilly, dropping back down towards freezing in most areas. And Bellingham didn't get above freezing at all today. Eastern Washington and Oregon, plenty cold. You can see some heavy snowfall still going out there in the Pendleton area. And some snow still flying, lighter amounts up by Spokane, I-90, over towards St. Mary's there in Idaho. And there's also this wind chill advisory. We talked a little bit about this last night, how the outflow winds coming down the Okanagan River Valley Gap there. And you can see there's some wind chill down to negative 15 expected. Brewster, Badger Mountain Road, Omak, Bridgeport, Mansfield, Orville, Waterville. So heads up, you're probably pretty aware if you're out there, but if you're traveling out of Wenatchee on Highway 2, watch out for that. And 97 North, Highway 97 out of Wenatchee North. So let's just go ahead and jump into, actually let's take a look at this satellite here first. The GO-17 is just an amazing piece of technology. It's such high resolution, just a beautiful picture. It really gives a good heads up on what's going on out there. The satellite never lies. An old saying by some National Weather Service employees rings true. You can see the moisture streaming into western Oregon, mostly rain in the Willamette Valley, snow in the Cascades, and you can still feeding some of that heavy snow there in eastern Oregon. And as we look, we still have the ridge going on here. That's going to change in the next few days. And on a side note, you see these lines here. You ever wonder what those are when you're looking at the satellite imagery? These are called ship tracks. It's condensation nuclei being emitted from these ships as they go across the ocean there. And it gets caught up in those lower level clouds and then gets moving in the mean flow there. Just kind of an interesting note. But before we go into the extended, we're going to take a look at the European and the GFS and compare them and kind of see what's coming up here in the next week or so and on into the future. First of all, let's take a look at what we got last night into this morning for the entire region here. Still snowing out here in northeast Oregon, so there's some pretty good totals out there, but the storm is not over yet for them. Let's just go ahead and zoom in on Portland. Mainly just a few tenths in the greater metropolitan area for Portland. As you got east into the higher terrain, you got over an inch, and some of the west areas got over an inch too. And you can see more as you go through the gorge and towards Hood River. Down towards Eugene, Salem, they got much less, just a trace amount really. So as we go ahead and look at the Seattle area, you can see the models did pretty good with that kind of lack of snow here around the Lakewood, just south of Tacoma area. Olympia got over 3 inches in many spots. The coast didn't get much. Forks got just about a half an inch. Seattle proper, 1.5 to 2. And then as you went north, towards Silver Firs, Mill Creek, Maltby, you got over 3 inches. Everett, 4 inches. North of Marysville, there's 6.5 in Arlington. Up towards Bellingham, look at that east, over 6 inches, numerous reports. And you can see how the snow shadow was picked up well. Look at this kind of lack of snowfall through this area. The snow shadow was going here this morning, and then it eventually filled in and brought all areas some snowfall. I got 3 inches at my house here in Normandy Park. And you can see some 3+ inch readings through Federal Way and Auburn there too. Eastern Washington, you can see the basin largely under an inch as forecast. And Grand Coulee an inch. You can see Spokane got 2+ inches there. Pullman did really well, 5 inches of snow. And we can see the storm is still going on out here, but we've got some 4 and 5+ readings out in northeast Oregon. So let's take a look at the extended here, what everybody really wants to know about. What's going to come up in our future weather? The pattern looks to remain active. We'll go ahead and take an in-depth look at it here. Here is the European model, the 12Z run that is in. And we'll just go and compare that to the GFS so we can toggle back and forth here. European GFS. GFS is on the 18Z run now here, so we'll just do that. Won't hurt. So you can see the system kind of sliding through Washington, and then you see the Arctic air come down into the plains here, and this is going to bring some Arctic air into the Midwest of the U.S. And you see that big Arctic high out there at this point. And so then you see our next low pressure system up here over the Gulf of Alaska, a deep low. Up over southeast Alaska here, you can see the strong pressure gradients. And at this point, if we compare the European and the GFS, we can say with high confidence that storm is going to develop. And they both show that this next the Arctic high is pretty far north, off the north shore of Alaska there. And both models are in agreement of this storm developing down here and some cold air dropping down into the plains, probably going to get all the way down towards Texas even. But anyway, back to our region here. Here is the GFS 18Z. Keeps dropping that low down there, and you see these gradients are really tight over western Washington here. This is probably a pretty windy solution. This is going to be onshore flow. It's going to warm up the area. But you can see this Arctic high up here, so there's still going to be some Arctic air that looks like it's trying to make its way down. And the European there too. We toggle back and forth. You can see they're in decent agreement. The GFS has a bit tighter gradients over the region versus the GFS, but we'll work that out in later runs. And as we go forward here on the European, that low just sags. It's fully out over the Gulf of Alaska now. Good agreement. You can see how the European is a little bit further north at that Arctic high versus the GFS. But still, pretty good agreement on the general location of it. And here we go, GFS into the future a little bit further here. You can see that low weaken a bit, and that Arctic high start to slide down. And it is coming into South British Columbia here, and also you can see it on the east side of the Rockies here also, just a massive Arctic high here. And if we look at the European here, the Arctic high isn't as strong, but still pretty impressive. And a lot of that is starting to go down into Montana, eastern Montana, into the Dakotas here. And you can see the next low pressure system off of Vancouver Island here on the European model, and it kind of fills and it slides underneath the southern periphery of that high, which is what these lows tend to do. This Arctic air is basically a wedge, and it pushes the air up in front of it, and this air rises, causing low pressure and troughing, and that's where you get the storm and the snowfall. And as we compare that to the GFS, you can see the ridge extends further south, even into British Columbia, and that storm, that these lows kind of come into western Washington here, and this is a really interesting scenario on the GFS again on the 18Z here. This Arctic air piled up here can easily tap that with a well-placed low pressure system coming into western Washington. Any areas on the north side, especially in southern British Columbia or Vancouver Island under this scenario, would be a huge winter weather maker on here. And then the GFS slides most of this Arctic energy down, or the Arctic high down into the Midwest, all the way down into the plains. And you can see not much left over the Yukon there. And this system starts to come in north. So then we would warm up again. But again, those would be huge mountain snowmakers. And there on the GFS, there would be lowland snow potential with a system like this for western Washington. And of course, that includes eastern Washington, eastern Oregon. That would be close for Portland. It depends on where the low would come in exactly. But looking at the Euro, you'll notice that low was further north. And as that comes in, you'll notice pretty good agreement with that Arctic high sliding east of the Rockies. Pretty typical usually. That deep Arctic air usually stays east of the Rockies. But you can see here, there's probably some cold air in place here. And this system is coming in at a latitude that could, you could be talking about some winter weather on the north side of that low. So both models kind of show that here. And then you'll see some more low pressure systems develop on the southern periphery of this chillier air and on into the future. So, and then the European even brings back, more of an Arctic high here too. And then it would depend what path this low out here, is this going to spin up here and develop on in south, or is this Arctic high going to weaken and slide east again? Or is this low going to really take up residence and just start casting more of an onshore gradient across the region? So that's yet to be seen, and that's getting pretty far into fantasy land. But this is just kind of an example of what things I look at. So the GFS you can see it start that. I mean, at this point, it just kind of locks up this high. It brings some. This high is just overtaken the lower 48 at this point. And you can see the Gulf of Alaska is just roaring with huge storms, pinwheeling around that main parent low there. And we're way off in Fantasyland, GFS there. But now I'll show you something else here too. So let's take a look at 850 millibar temperature anomaly. This is just showing how much below zero the temperatures are at 5,000 feet. Just kind of gives us a good indicator of where Arctic air is located. So this is the GFS versus, we'll go this way. There's the European and the GFS. Good agreement here, of course. We're in the short term. And you can see the bulk of that east of the Rockies, eastern Montana, headed towards the Dakotas there, sliding down all the way into Texas there. Look at that. So they're finally going to get some winter weather out there. And they might want to watch for some severe out here eventually. When is this? This is next weekend out into the southeast. But again, let's go back to the Pacific Northwest. GFS, you can see that Arctic air also sliding east of the Rockies down into the plains. And then look what's coming out of the north, the Yukon, British Columbia. That's a lot of cold air, again, stored up there. You can see some of this is spilled out over the Gulf of Alaska, going on into the future here. And you can see more of it spill out off of British Columbia there. So, sorry, this is the European. I don't know if I said GFS or not, but this is the European. But that's a lot of cold air stored up in British Columbia. And it doesn't take much of an air to bring this a little bit further south or to have low pressure systems track on the southern periphery of this Arctic high and bring winter weather into Washington and even down into towards Portland and for the eastern portions of the state. So this has to be watched. The European has been steadfast that it's a little bit further north than the GFS. So that's why I'm not too confident in the scenario yet, but we are confident that there is going to be the cold air locked up there. And when that cold air is up there, it doesn't take a lot to tap it. Like I just said, with these Pacific systems that move off, if they come in the right trajectory, they can tap that cold air. Now looking at the GFS, you see that Arctic air get into place well down into southern British Columbia. That's really close. And you'd have to watch out there. That could definitely easily spill down into Washington. And then it brings another shot. And my computer's not liking that, but it brings a little bit more Arctic air close by. So anyway, the main take from this is that there's going to be a lot of cold air nearby in British Columbia. So we're kind of on that borderline of Pacific air mass or Arctic air mass. What's going to be dominant? What track is it going to take? How far will this Arctic air get south? So that's what we're looking at for the future. We'll probably do another update tomorrow for sure. Maybe I'll do a live feed later on and take some Q&As. You guys might have some questions if you're seeing all this. But there's all kinds of possibilities after this. Let's just run through this really quick here. Here's the European. You can see here the storm that's moving out of the region now, and you see that move into the plains, and you'll see some freezing rain possibility through Arkansas here and Kansas down in towards Oklahoma. And then you see our next big storm system out here, this huge 976 low, and our onshore gradient that's going here. Atmospheric river coming into Vancouver Island in western Washington here with some tight gradients. And we could get some good rain out of that. Hopefully the snow levels don't rise too much. Doesn't look like they will too much. Still a pretty chilly low. But a lot of rain for the west portions of the state with that one. And then you see another one slam into Oregon. Look at that developing wave as it slams into Oregon. That's a setup that caused the South Valley surprise there. Big windstorms can happen on the southern periphery of those big parent lows as these storms and waves develop as they reach the coast there. Look at that tight gradient through southern Oregon and North California. So that's something I watch for when I look for windstorms. Now, this is when we start to get interesting. You can see this cold air is sagged south and depends on this track of this low here. You can see Vancouver Island in the snow. Cascades, looks like low snow levels all the way through Whatcom County, southern British Columbia. And of course, eastern Washington is going to be freezing. The highlands of the northeast Oregon and Idaho would be below freezing. And that looks like it tracks just north. So that would keep western Washington in the rain there. But again, that Arctic air makes a little bit further progress, and that low could come in further south, and we could get winter weather all the way down through western Washington. So that's just kind of what we're looking at there. And so yeah, let's look at the extended there. And thanks for liking these. Thanks for commenting. I like to hear your weather reports too. The snowfall totals are good to have. And yeah, so I will talk to you guys later. I might do a live stream tonight. You guys might have some Q&As about what we just went over, and I'll do another briefing tomorrow. We'll look at the extended in more in depth, and we'll try to pick out some more individual weather systems that might be impacting the Pacific Northwest. So thanks for watching, guys. I'll talk to you later.